So today I have some props. This beautifully made new broom, handmade by my fellow monk, whose speciality is broom making and using them, and a chair, which you won't ordinarily see because I prefer to sit on the floor. Because, excuse me, I've been asked again to talk about meditation, meditating for a long time. So this is not a guided meditation, it is just some basic instructions. But firstly, with regards to that question, statement, it isn't really about how long you meditate for, it is about the quality of the meditation. However, having said that, if the quality of your meditation is high, then you will be able to, and more importantly, you will want to meditate for a long time. But it is a very step-by-step and gradual training. If you've ever practiced any sports involving the body, well, of course, all sports generally involve the body, but so yes, physical sports, then you'll know there's an element of training, practice, repeating, before you get proficient and good and are able to sustain this activity for a length of time. You can't begin running a marathon. You have to start with shorter distances and build up. And it is the same with meditation, because the vehicle we are using for our meditation is, of course, our bodies. The whole point is to relax to allow our mind to settle, our thinking mind to settle, in order that it can become calm, our bodies to settle, in order that our bodies can relax. So we're not training them in the same sense, in a physical nature, for endurance, but there is an aspect of getting used to not using the body for something. Because of course we are used to fidgeting and moving. Even in our sleep, we move quite a lot, rolling from this way to that way. And it is our body's way of keeping the blood flowing evenly, and to some extent also our mind's way of distracting itself from something it may not like discomfort. It will tend to move rather than be with that discomfort. But in meditation, this is where our practice, our training comes in, to try and avoid using the body for the duration of the time you're sitting for meditation. So this is the first qualifying point. It is quality, not quantity. And next, the Buddha said that meditation is in 4 postures: sitting, standing, walking and lying down. Sitting, standing, walking and lying down. We hear about sitting meditation, and we hear about Chongkumun here, it's walking meditation, so maybe walking a meditation path, stepping right, stepping left, stepping right, or Bhutto, 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 up and down for a period of time. We don't so often hear about standing meditation or lying down meditation. Standing meditation, if you are in a job where you stand a good part of the day, it's a useful option to have as a fallback, just as is if you're sitting for most of the day, when given the opportunity, if you're sitting correctly, hence the chair here, I will demonstrate, then you can also fall back to an option of meditation without really anyone noticing or knowing that you've just decided to practice some meditation. Because to all intents and purposes, you are there, present, awake, energetic and alert. It's not like dozing off to sleep on your desk. So I'll talk a bit more about that little work office cheat in a moment. So the first question came saying, well, how is it, you can sit in samadhi for 2 hours, 3 hours, and it not be disrupted by pain? Well, samadhi is the practice of samadhi is to maintain initially, when you're first beginning, your conscious awareness on a meditation object, and by focusing the thinking mind on that, eventually you will let go of, or will, let's say, dissipate, fade away, most of the bodily feelings and discomfort that arises through not moving around, and then are able to sit for long lengths of time undisturbed by any bodily pains or necessary functions you think it may need to perform, which actually it can do without for some time. So I'm not going to talk about the 5 hindrances, which are to do with really the mind's obstacles that are put in your way of meditation, but today really just the body and the mind's way of dealing with those obstacles. It comes into the 5 hindrances as the second, aversion, not wanting. So for instance, you have a pain in your knee, you have the desire not to have that pain, and therefore the desire to move in order to reduce that pain. Now, any pain, any discomfort is usually a sign of potential damage. So I will always say, adjust your posture accordingly, and get this right at the very beginning before starting meditation. Now, the reason I have the broom as a prop is because I'm going to hang the microphone on the broom because otherwise I'm going to pull the phone from its balanced position, and I hope you'll still be able to hear me. I haven't tried this out. I'm just had this idea, looking at the broom, thought, well, I'll hang the mic on the broom and we'll see what happens. So let's just, rather than me talking about this, we're going to just do it. I'm going to show you how one begins meditation, and then hopefully that will lead to some answers as to how we develop the ability to meditate for a long time. So if I get the everything in place, as usual, this is unrehearsed. How about that? Wow. Now, it's not perfect, but I will begin with just showing you without saying much, how one uses a chair. We're not all able to sit cross-legged on the floor, and that takes a little getting used to for most of us, including myself. I didn't begin sitting on the floor. I didn't start meditation until I was in my 40s. Yes, about that, early 40s, and therefore had spent the majority of my life on a chair, usually a more comfortable chair, sofas, car seats, all of these comfortable places we sit, and your body gets used to that. In Asian countries, they are more used to sitting on the floor for most activities. So therefore they're used to getting up from the floor position, which involves the use of more muscles which need to be trained and practiced. And like anything, you need to be careful, stretching, warming up, and be careful not to damage anything. I'm not a physiotherapist, I'm not a PE teacher, or whatever you call them, or a medic, or any of these things. So please, you take advice from professional people when it comes to performing anything that involves any aspect of physical endurance, because I cannot advise on your body's capabilities. I can only explain to you how I understand from my own practice and experience how the body can adjust. And we are looking always at very small, gradual, gentle adjustments. Gentle being the operative word. This is a practice of kindness, and this kindness begins with ourselves. Being kind to ourselves is of primary importance before we can ever entertain the idea of being kind to others. So let's just quickly demonstrate how one would sit on a chair. It sounds like it would be obvious, but often the inclination is to lean back or lean on the arms of the chair. This chair doesn't have arms, so it's a good chair. But one must not do that. One must keep the spine upright. I'll explain that further when I'm sitting on the floor, because I think it'll be easier to do so. So if you can hear me, just like that. Ears, shoulder, hips, seat, and then not leaning back like this. Hands, left hand, right hand. And then your legs, thighs horizontal to your knees, and then at right angles straight down, so your feet are flat on the floor, slightly apart, knees slightly apart, relaxed but upright and alert. So that doesn't really work, does it? Oh, I can. Apologies for my archaic improvisation. I will need this broom again in a moment, so I should just leave it there. The point being, our spines are made up of the vertebrae, and if you think of them like cotton reels, on a piece of string. If you've ever seen a child's creation from nursery school, where they can sometimes put cotton reels on a piece of string, or even beads. Let's think of beads on a mala, more appropriate perhaps. If it is held upright, the beads hang straight, don't they? And imagine your spine being held upright by the... oh. That's not very good, is it? A cord coming from the crown at the top of your head, holding your back up straight, and all of the vertebrae being suspended straight down to the very bottom of your spine, your coccyx in your bottom, which is resting firmly on a solid surface, whether it be the seat of this chair or the ground, the floor here below me. Okay? This is our desired position for maximum maintenance of awakeness, and also ultimately maximum comfort, although initially it doesn't seem very comfortable. After you have sat for a little while in this position, you will get used to sitting upright. So let me just demonstrate this more properly in the sitting on the floor position. I've got an idea here. If I put that round there like that. There. Let's begin from standing. I'm not going to talk about standing meditation today or walking meditation. If you're standing, you just would stand with your feet slightly apart. But we could talk about that as a whole new subject. We're talking about the usual understanding of sitting and sitting on a chair or on the floor for purposes of today. So when one comes to sit on the floor, you preferably need even if you're new to this, a relatively firm surface. If you have carpet, it's okay, it's ideal. If you have too much of a soft surface, like the top, like a bed, for instance, it's not advisable, or a sofa or a very thick cushion, because your knees and points of contact will sink in, and therefore the bits between the points of contact will lose blood flow. And this is where we find pins and needles arising. If I sit on one of these posh mats in meditation centres that they have, which are about 2 inches or an inch or two thick of foam, I get pins and needles myself. If I sit on this wooden floor here, or a concrete floor, I never get pins and needles or numbness. And I've been doing this now for 15 years. So I've learned that what looks comfortable ultimately isn't. So let me just show you what we do. Now, this is how I begin to sit, but of course you go about this in your own way and time, comfortably and safely. This is for me to demonstrate how I begin. So if I do it sideways, I think. So simply just drop down to one's knees, really. We as monks do this because we're then bowing, and this is our usual position for bowing. So I have in here a Buddha Rupa. You can't see, but I will bow to the Buddha, and this is a little bonus lesson on bowing. One sits on heels. This is called sitting on your haunches. I'm not sure if you can see that. And you may have noticed I wasn't tipping my bottom up in the air like one of those seesaw kind of motions. I'm bending from my waist down, head to the floor, and bowing. If you can't do that, your head does not need to go quite to the floor. It's acceptable to go halfway, or as like this. This is all you can do. There's no need to be sticking your bottom up in the air. If you're sitting behind that person in a crowded meditation center, it's not so good. You are just bowing, and you just then have bottom in your face. That's not the point. The point being is it is a physical training. And if you do this, the only blood that rushes to your head is the top half. If you do this and your bottom goes up, all of your thighs and bottom blood rushes to your head also. And it'll give you a head rush 3 times. And that's no way to start meditation or chanting. So all of these seemingly traditional rituals have practical reasons behind them. Okay, so to sit, I'll show you the 3 cross-legged sitting positions. As monks, and really as lay people, we never point our feet to the Buddha Rupa. So we have a way of sitting that means that doesn't happen. But it's also, if you can learn this method, a way of very smoothly transitioning from standing, kneeling, sitting, without feet, knees and arms and legs all over the place, which is, again, more conducive to calmness, relaxation, peace of mind and serenity, not only for yourself, but for those who are around you. So, my feet like this, simply cross them like that. So in this case, left over right. And then I can sit down, and excuse me having my back to you. And then already, when my bottom hits the floor, already sitting in the Burmese position. I've already crossed my legs before I even sat, whilst I was kneeling. Put my bottom on the floor, my legs are automatically already crossed in front of me. I haven't moved, I'm just going to turn around so you can see that in a moment. The position should be such that your ears are in line with your shoulders are in line with your hips, and the top of your head, ears, shoulders, hips, which means your chin will be slightly tucked in. You will need probably to push the back, this part of your back, in a little, so your tummy out a little. And this is keeping an upright spine. Your vertebrae are hanging or supported in a line vertically, with no leaning this way or leaning that way. Let me turn around. And we can now lose the broom, I think. Maybe not. And I'm not sure whether you can see how I'm sitting now is what we call the Burmese position. Sorry, but I realise I'm going to have to move back, otherwise you can't see. Or maybe pull the phone off. I should think this is entertainment enough for you today, isn't it? Okay. Now I'm hoping this is visible. My right leg is in front of my left leg. So the calf behind my right shin is parallel with the shin of my left lower leg. So you have the shin at the front, calf at the back. So the front of my right leg is in front of my left leg. They're not crossed, they're just laying naturally on the floor as I sit in the upright position. Now when you first do this, your knees will be like this, up, because you don't naturally, if you've been used to sitting on chairs, sit like this. Don't worry about that. It is okay. But this is how you sit. How you do not sit is, it's quite difficult to remember how you do not sit, the school cross-legged position, whereby you, this is it. Can you see? Like have all your legs tangled up at the bottom. Because in this position, your knees are all up in the air because they're on top of your ankles and feet. And the objective is to have your bottom or your pelvis slightly higher than your knees. And in this case, it is in reverse. Not only that, you have many pinch points between bones and blood flow, where pins and needles and numbness will certainly occur in a very short time. So separate your legs. There's nothing to be achieved by discomfort. And this is sufficient. This is what they call the Burmese position. Eventually, sitting like this, and you can always sit like this, you need not go any further. You do not have to sit in the half lotus or full lotus. This is quite adequate for the sitting position. Eventually, just naturally, in time, your knees will gradually drop. Not in the meditation, over many times of practice, as your body gets used to sitting in this position. Eventually, so that your knees are on the floor. Now, it is also perfectly okay to have a little folded mat or a cushion, a zafu, as many people use, which is like a beaded cushion thing. I personally don't like those because they have to be adjusted a bit and they move around. I think even if you're going to have anything, just a folded piece of foam, a few inches at the most thick, which you can just place underneath the back of your bottom to raise it up a little bit, which will automatically push your knees down. So if your knees are up like this, by raising your bottom, your knees can drop down like this. I hope this can be seen, otherwise I'm really wasting my time. So this is how you'd be sitting on a zafu. But eventually you can do without that, and your 3 points of contact with the ground are your bottom and your two knees. Your ankles are just resting softly on the surface, and there are no pinch points, and if your back is upright, you'll feel perfectly comfortable and also quite energetic. The next two positions are half lotus, where you put your left foot on top of your right foot on top of your left thigh, like this, and your left foot is then tucked into your groin underneath your right thigh. The only points of contact with your ankles, which are the bony sharp bits, are with fleshy parts, not the surface of the floor or the chair you're sitting on, and not each other. So there are no pinch points for cutting off blood circulation. But in this position, your knees and your left foot is in contact with the surface. So for my preference, if I'm sitting on a rock, say down at the beach there, which is quite granite or limestone, whatever it is, sharp and spiky, that too is a little bit uncomfortable. You can bear it, but you will have little marks, impressions. You could get quite sores from sitting like that for a long time, or even a short time. So I prefer the full lotus, which is very supportive for long-term meditation, but of course it takes some time to get used to. I mean, the full lotus requires you to put your left foot on your right thigh first, right thigh first, and then this right foot on your left thigh. This way, your bottom is on the ground, your knees are on the ground when you sit upright like this. But between your knees and your bottom is just the back of your thighs, which is the best cushion, the best zafu, the best mat there is. Not only that, you cannot fall over. You are very solidly supported in this position. Both feet are facing flat and upright. And with your back straight, this is by far the most ideal position for meditation. But don't try this at home, as they say. Slowly, slowly. Start with this Burmese position when your feet, your knees are comfortably sitting on the surface of the floor like this in the Burmese position. Only then, without forcing your knees down, when they naturally touch the ground, only then should you really start to put your right foot on your left thigh, adopting the half lotus position. Okay, so this is the excuse me, the physical side of our experiment. I think I might as well just leave that there. I want to make myself look decent and not in sports training mode, as it's not that kind of a video, and just talk about then where do we go with this meditation, because the question was, how do we make it last for a long time? So having got your position, your body correctly positioned on your chair, on the floor, upright spine, crown, top of the head, ears, shoulders, hips, bottom touching the floor or chair, knees touching the floor or chair. No, sorry, your knees in an right angle position, feet flat on the floor, the surface below them if you're sitting in a chair. Take some deep breaths, slowly inhaling and exhaling. And as you do so, just pay attention to the environment, your surroundings, what is around you, and take it all in. And just allow some time to settle. And from the sounds of it, these brooms are starting to be used, which means the other monks are beginning a little sweeping, which means it's time for me to bring this video to an end, I think. But I'll probably continue it later, so we'll make it a part 2. Having got to the sitting position, I will then talk you through, not in a guided meditation, just step by step, basic instructions of how to allow the mind to become absorbed. Because this was the question. Absorbed in meditation into samadhi, where one can meditate for 2 to 3 hours or longer without being affected by the obstacle of physical discomfort and pain, and then continue this for as long as you are enjoying it for. Or until, like now, you simply run out of time. And your alarm goes, or the sweeping begins, and you think, I better start putting this tool to the use for which it is designed, which is some sweeping. So I'm very happy to go and do that now. I really enjoy sweeping with this thing, and I can come back to this and continue it as a part 2 later on. It may go out over a couple of days. I don't know when I'll get the next opportunity. But I hope you find that useful, some of that. And if you have questions, please put them in the comments. And once again, if I can remind you to be careful and kind to your bodies, don't try anything too difficult. The main thing is to be relaxed and to be comfortable, and be careful of what we do with our bodies. And they will settle and get used to this position, and sooner or later you will be not having to think about it. And that's one less hindrance in your meditation. So, thank you for watching. Dismantle my studio.